Hi everyone, I am doing our little Choose Life catch up for this week, my last one of the year, and I just wanted to take a look today at Crippled or Equipped from the 5th of December from Monday, because when I read this it really struck a chord. So I'm going to read it through. Follow if you want, or if you've got not your book, don't worry. It's called Crippled or Equipped, and the reference to kick off is from Genesis 32. And it says this: When the man saw that he could not overpower Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched. Then the man said, "Let me go. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and have overcome." And Jacob was limping because of his hip. So then Simon goes on to write this. Jacob, meaning he deceives, had his name changed to Israel, meaning that he struggles with God. Up to that point in his life, he had lived up to his first name repeatedly, as he cheated his brother Esau out of birthright, out of both his birthright and their father's deathbed blessing, and then he had to flee for his life. But this encounter with an angel was a pivotal moment. After it, he limped for the rest of his life, but his crippling was in fact his equipping. His crippling brought greater humility, teachability, wisdom to deal with all that lay ahead. A tourist in Israel came across a sheepfold located high on a hilltop. She noticed a poor sheep lying by the side of the road, bleating in pain. Looking more closely, she saw that its leg was injured. She asked the shepherd how it had happened. He said, "I had to break it myself. It was the only way I could keep that wayward creature from straying into unsafe places." From past experience, I have found that a sheep will follow me once I've nursed it back to health. Because of the loving relationship that will be established as I care for her, in the future she will come instantly at my beck and call. Do we ever need some firm handling by Jesus, the supremely good shepherd? I can look back and be grateful for the time he punctured my pride with a public failure. It felt humiliating and crippling at the time, but it became a moment of equipping for God's glory. Trusting he is indeed good, submit to him today. And I read that earlier in the week, and it got me thinking, like this time of year, often I find myself, and I don't know about you guys, but you think, gosh, I can't wait until all of this is over and next year can put this year behind me and crack on with the next one. And especially this year, I've been caught myself thinking, you know what, I cannot wait until this year is over and done with. Sometimes you might think that by month or even by week or by day. I can't wait to get to tomorrow. This day has been awful. And yeah, we might feel that, and that's a genuine feeling, and I don't think that's bad. But we sometimes fall into the bit of the New Year's resolution. There we go. Into that trap a little bit, thinking, right, 1st of January, I'm going to crack on with this. I'm going to give up eating chocolate. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to get away from that destructive habit. I'm going to sort out that issue. And yeah, it's all good and well for a couple of weeks. I think it's about 2 weeks. That generally lasts 2-3 weeks until things just start to fall apart again. I know that, was it this year or last year, my New Year's thing was like every day I'm going to go for a walk. And actually I did that for about 3 months. But then you miss a few and it happens. But I'm talking about the bigger things, the bigger issues, whether we're getting over something that's happened this year, we're dealing with a failure or a trauma or whatever. These can be quite serious things, and we think if we can just get to next year, December being that kind of weird month where everything happens but nothing happens, do you know what I mean? And we think January, that's the time. But actually, God proves to us time and time again that the stuff we go through and the stuff we deal with, it's not a case of closing a chapter and starting a new one necessarily, but we learn so much about ourselves and about the character of God through those difficult times. So my thought really, my challenge just off the back of reading this is like, what has crippled us this year? And what can we approach God and say, would you use this to equip me? Would you use this to further to challenge me so I can further develop my character? Challenge me so I can further develop my relationship with you, God, or with others around me. And that got me thinking, because we've been through some tough stuff this year, and it's like, gosh, just next year will come and it's going to be full of greatness, but actually it won't. Like, there'll be great times next year and there'll be bad times like there is every year, like there is every week. We live our lives in this constant kind of up and down. And I remember a couple of years ago finding that out as an adult, thinking, yeah, every year is up and down. You don't have good ones and bad ones necessarily. Every year has got troubles of its own. But it's just thinking, like, what can we build on? Rather than thinking January 2023, the year of this, year of that, everything's going to be great. God doesn't waste anything. And I know I learned that a lot during the pandemic. God doesn't waste anything, ever. The things we go through are always for a reason, but that hits home every now and then. And sometimes it takes a long, long time to work out what the reason was. In Jacob's story, the reason he went through that traumatic experience and that lifelong injury was like, that completely changed him. And that was a pivotal moment in his life where everything changed and he built. But in that time, in the days, weeks following, it must have been hard. It must have been a very difficult adjustment. And for that story about the sheep, gosh, I read the pretty brutal. It's like, oh God, I read that over breakfast and like thinking about sheep getting their legs broken. And God isn't saying today to you that he's going to break your leg. Let's just clarify that. That's not what's going to happen. But what an amazing picture that is. You know, the shepherd had to injure that sheep to keep it safe. That sheep had to go through that bad time. I imagine what was going through its mind. I don't know how much was going through its mind, but you know, a bit of this traumatic experience, and the person I thought was here to care for me has done this to me, and now look at my life. I can't do what I want to do. I can't go where I want to go. But ultimately, it led that shepherd to be able to care for his sheep, in a more deeply and more secure way. Do we ever, Simon writes, need some firm handling by Jesus? Sometimes we do. And sometimes we need God. We need to say to God, what can you teach me from this awful and difficult situation? Because he might be changing your name. He might be changing your purpose. He might be changing your life or your family, whatever. And he's always leading us into more, into a deeper relationship with him, with more knowledge of God, more experience of who he is, and more skills, gifts, talents through his spirit to go out there and to use and to share with others. So that's my closing thought, just a challenge. Think about that. Crippled or equipped. God is equipping you, wants to equip you, wants to equip all of us to do his work. Sometimes it starts with a difficulty, it starts with a challenge, but that is what he's promising to do for us. So that's just a couple of my musings and ramblings here in my living room. So thank you guys for listening. Let's just read this prayer as we finish. Lord, equip me by whatever means to make your obedient, faithful servant. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys. See you soon.